Hello, my name is Vlad, I've been living in Ukraine all my life, and on my channel I will tell you a lot of things about my country. How people live here, how our country looks like, what problem we face, and a lot of different stuff. Subscribe! Today I'm gonna show you a typical Ukrainian village. Most of our villages look like this. Frankly speaking, the majority of villages in post-Soviet countries look like this one. So let's start. A village which I'm showing is called Druzhba, which translated to friendship. Druzhba is located in the north of Ukraine near the Russia border. No, there is no war here, it's far away from Donetsk. Technically it's a town, 4,000 inhabitants, but maybe half of them don't live there regularly. We start our journey from railway station. I arrived by train, hadn't taken a photo of it, though as it was in a very poor shape. The station is old, but it was renovated around 15 years ago. Here you can see a few freight trains with a gas from Russia. The railway station on the inside with some information about crossing the border on a wall. Here is a waiting room closed due to quarantine. A curious looking trash can near the railway station. Let's move to streets of our village. Usually we can divide a village into two types of districts. First, multi-apartment Soviet building with a few built in 90s, and the second it's a private sector, mostly filled as wooden houses, and only some of them recent, built it with modern materials. In this photo you can see an old wooden red house, people still live there. Even though the house is shabby, look how fascinated the details around the window. On the street there are a lot of wooden houses in traditional style. Here you can see a very unusual roof. In these houses I especially like how windows look like. They have a lot of details and most of them have unique shapes and different ornaments. A fascinating yellow house with a green accent. As you can see, the window frames were changed cause it gets quite cold here in winter. A satellite dish installed on an old house. Here too. Some abandoned houses. I'm not sure about this house, but it looks unkept. Some old wooden houses look like this house. Its facade is covered with clay. A lot of houses are built using bricks, but they still have some wooden parts. Usually it's veranda or a terrace. This house was put up for sale ages ago, it's quite dilapidated now. It's an old wooden house renovated with lining. This house also. A few nice looking new houses and a castle. I've never been inside, but rumor has it that the owner have their own mini zoo at this place. Let's move on to multi-apartment buildings. In Druzhba there are 20 or 30 multi-apartment buildings. The highest one is a 5-floor building, there are a few other buildings like this in the village. Here are some quite typical Soviet block which we have in every city or village in Ukraine or other post-Soviet countries. Usually the flats are quite small, as we can see by lots of rebuilt balconies here, which are commonly used for storage. There are a lot of satellite dishes on the buildings, it's quite widespread here. Residents usually own personal garages near their houses, and also there are a lot of sheds, because even people who live in flats can keep small gardens for growing vegetables. An entrance to one of these buildings. Other multi-apartment buildings but newer, quite better on the inside than the first one. In some houses there are big basements with tunnels, some of them were built in Soviet era and used as a bomb shelter in case of nuclear war or just any war really. Nowadays the doors are all removed, but I remember they were used to a huge metal door resembling an entrance for a nuclear shelter. Here is maybe one of my favorite multi-apartment buildings in this village. Unfortunately though I have no clue when it was built. Could be during Russian Empire or the early USSR. Usually roads in this village look like this. or this. Here the situation is slightly better. Thankfully, a few years ago the roads were renovated in some places. Okay, I'm done with living area. Now what about public buildings? In the Soviet era the village was pretty well off because its location close to factories. But year after year it becomes worse and worse. It's a house of culture, as it was called in Soviet times. Here there is a concert hall, some clubs for children, like dancing courses, and a cinema. Actually the cinema was reopened recently. As you can see, the renovation look awful. People in our country like to destroy their history. Thank God this great Soviet mosaic was preserved. It's a school, it was renovated too, but not in such bad manner. It looks quite good for a small town. Usually the schools in our country haven't been repaired since Soviet times. This is a typical corner store, but there is also a supermarket, which is unusual for such a small town. Inside it resembles any common Ukrainian supermarket, nothing special, but it's quite decent for this town. There also is a memorial for soldiers fallen in Second World War. Here are the names of villagers who fought against Nazis. Ukrainian coat of arms were installed instead of a communist red star. The same thing happened here. There used to be a big star on the top. There are a few Orthodox churches, this is a small one and a huge one. Curious that in Soviet times this church was closed and instead of it there was a dancing club. Now it has returned to being a church. In this place we can find a sauna. Here we can see a cafe, which was closed due to quarantine, and a pharmacy. It's probably a gym or at least something like that. As I said, there were a few factories that were destroyed after Soviet Union collapsed. Here was one of the biggest sugar factories in the Soviet Union, which was founded in 1856. Now it looks like this. The main part was fully destroyed, other parts were abandoned. That's why people are trying to leave this place, because they don't have any job here. I also want to show you graveyard, even though you can find it a bit strange. It's located in the forest and looks mesmerizing. It's unlike any Western graveyard with certain order as standard. It looks very chaotic and filled with lots of different shapes. The trees around the graves make it look even more interesting. A really fantastic thing about this place is its nature. Druzhba is located in the north, and there are a lot of forests, swamps, ponds and other stuff. Just look. In the end, I wanna randomly show you some remaining photos. Here is a typical road in Druzhba. On the left you can see a Soviet buildings, and on the right some private houses. Photo of a Soviet building from afar. Babushka and goats. Traditional wooden well. Soviet water pumps. City council, nothing else interesting about this building. A pile of firewood, people still use it cause the gas and electricity are expensive. Hobbits live here. Somebody is selling plastic flowers, we usually place them at the graveyards. People are trying to repair their road without success. Chickens, geese. That's all for this video. If you want to know more about Ukraine, subscribe to my channel, like this video and write in the comments what do you want to know about Ukraine and other post-Soviet countries.